Maranatha, and welcome to part 10 of Flipping Tables. And this is September the 28th. Sorry, September 27th, 2025. My man's calendar. Yes, September the 27th, 2025. My man's calendar. Anyways, I have some footage I want to cover with you. I was trying not to do any spoilers. This stuff happened in the last couple days. Has been posted, so I want to cover some of it. So let's talk about what's going on in the Middle East, shall we?
Thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. U.S. President Donald Trump announces that it looks like a deal in Gaza has been reached. President Trump also announces that he will not accept Israeli annexation of Judea and Samaria. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asserts in his address to the UN General Assembly that Jerusalem will not accept a Palestinian state. U.S. President Donald Trump will not allow Israel to assert its sovereignty over the so-called West Bank districts of Judea and Samaria. Nevertheless, in remarks to the UN Security Council, U.S. Ambassador to the World Body, Mike Waltz, stressed at the French-Saudi conference on pushing for Palestinian recognition earlier this week, merely emboldened the Islamist Hamas terror group, which cannot have any future governance of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip or West Bank. Hamas stands emboldened today after that conference. We've rewarded its obstruction. We've undermined efforts to achieve peace in both the short and the long term. Unilateral recognition statements do not alter the reality on the ground. It does not alter the fact that there is not a Palestinian state to recognize. And at this point, there is no credible Palestinian partner for peace. Despite the string of facts voiced by Ambassador Waltz, British Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs Yvette Cooper sought to defend Keir Starmer's decision to recognize the fictitious Palestinian state, claiming that it aimed to protect the viability of a two-state solution as the only path forward. The UK's historic recognition of the State of Palestine this week is part of our commitment to peace, part of acting to protect the viability of the two-state solution as the only path to a just and lasting peace and to security for Palestinians and Israelis alike, part of rejecting extremist ideas on all sides, which involve too often fantasies of the destruction of the state of Israel or expulsion of the Palestinian population.
I hope you understand what is going on here. They are wanting to two-state solution Israel, for one thing, and that means that they are seeking to split up more of Israel than they already have. Because they think that God is ignorant and that he doesn't see what they're doing. But God sees what they're doing, regardless of what they do or where they do it. And it's not up to Trump, and it's not up to Bibi Netanyahu. Here's the thing. If Bibi Netanyahu does not stand God's part, Bibi Netanyahu is going to stand before God for it. And God is not going to help him through the war. And they'll be destroyed. It doesn't matter how many nations stands on your side. No one is mightier than God. And remember how that God turned Pharaoh's heart against Moses every time that Moses went before Pharaoh till the very last. And then God finally softened Pharaoh's heart and let the people go. It was for a purpose. God was showing us then, even in that he could harden his heart toward us, or he could soften his heart toward us. What are you willing to do for God? That is the question. Even in spite of all this stuff that was happening, Moses held in there, and he continued to be obedient to God, and he continued to do what God commanded him to do, even when it looked hopeless. Think about that. Let's continue to listen, though.
We reject both of those.
London's top diplomat who took over the role of Foreign Secretary of State on September 5th stopped short, however, of acknowledging decades of negotiations on a two-state solution to include 5 concrete proposals to the Palestinians, all of which were outwardly rejected by both Arab and Palestinian leaders. Moreover, while Hamas is gradually but surely losing control over Gaza City, the Palestinian Authority's Fatah faction believes it should be the Palestinian actor to take over the territory it had lost to Hamas in June of 2007.
The Gaza Strip must be reunified with the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority, as reaffirmed repeatedly by this Council. We call for your support to our policy of one Palestinian state, one Palestinian government, one law, and one gun.
It is important to highlight that the Palestinian Authority continues to maintain 2 funds under the so-called
Palestinian government? No. You see, Palestine never owned Gaza to begin with. Gaza has always belonged to the Israelites because Israel belongs to the Israelites, those that God deems as Israelites. That was given to the Jews. That is not property of the Palestinians. Y'all need to read your Bibles.
Palestinian Authority's Martyrs Fund, which is established in 2004 to provide stipends to families of terrorists killed or injured during acts of nationalistically motivated terror against Israelis, as well as a prisoners fund that delivers monthly payments to Palestinians incarcerated in Israeli jails for terror-related offenses. Separately, the Palestinian Authority has effectively lost control of much of the West Bank, particularly in the northern Samaria region, where Iran had consequently filled the vacuum via the Islamist Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Nevertheless, irrespective of reality on the ground, Western leaders that are either ignorant, indifferent, or
Look
have
at all
ulterior
the Moloch
tactical or
flags.
strategic motives continue to promote the Palestinian Authority as a viable alternative, absent any demands for much-needed reform.
We have to support financially our partner for peace. Hamas is not a partner for peace. The Palestinian National Authority is, and Israel is trying to make the collapse financially of the Palestinian National Authority.
Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, for his part.
All right. I'm going to put a link to this in the description box. and I'm going to get into the next footage because I really want to get into Bibi Netanyahu's speech. There is much to cover in it, but I wanted to get y'all aware of what's going on and how the 47th said that he would not allow it. He would not allow Israel to annex this place. That is not up to 247. That's up to God. 47 is not God. Let me get the next footage up. Now we're going to get into Bibi Netanyahu's speech at the UN summit. He surprised them because he come to defend Israel and the things being said. So let's give this a listen, shall we?
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't intend to come here this year. My country is at war, fighting for its life. But after I heard the lies and slanders leveled at my country by many of the speakers at this podium, I decided to come here and set the record straight. I decided to come here to speak for my people, to speak for my country, to speak for the truth. And here's the truth. Israel seeks peace. Israel yearns for peace. Israel has made peace and will make peace again. Yet we face savage enemies who seek our annihilation, and we must defend ourselves against these savage murderers. Our enemies seek not only to destroy us, they seek to destroy our common civilization and return all of us to a dark age of tyranny and terror. When I spoke here last year, I said we faced the same timeless choice that Moses put before the people of Israel thousands of years ago. As we were about to enter the Promised Land, Moses told us that our actions will determine whether we bequeath to future generations a blessing or a curse. And that is the choice we face today. The curse of Iran's unremitting aggression, or the blessing of a historic reconciliation between Arab and Jew. In the days that followed that speech, the blessing I spoke of came into sharper focus. A normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel seemed closer than ever. But then came the curse of October 7th. Thousands of Iranian-backed Hamas terrorists from Gaza burst into...
Now, I would like to take the time to point out right there what he just said. A normalization deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. A normalization deal, and there is no such a thing as normalization, to be honest with you. The Lord is returning for a bride that has made herself ready. And I hope that these events will show you how close we are to the actual return of the true Messiah. Why they set up their cabinets and so forth to make ready for the false Messiah.
Israel in pickup trucks, on motorcycles, and they committed unimaginable atrocities. They savagely murdered 1,200 people. They raped and mutilated women. They beheaded men. They burnt babies alive. They burnt entire families alive. Babies, children, parents, grandparents, in scenes reminiscent of the Nazi Holocaust. Hamas kidnapped 251 people from dozens of different countries, dragging them into the dungeons of Gaza. Israel has brought home 154 of these hostages, including 117 who returned alive. I want to assure you, we will not rest until the remaining hostages are brought home too. And some of their family members are here with us today. I ask you to stand up. With us is Eli Stevie, whose son Idan was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. That was his crime. A music festival. And these murderous monsters took him. Kobe Smirno, whose son Jonathan was murdered, and his corpse was taken into the dungeons, into the terror tunnels of Gaza. A corpse held hostage. Salim Al-Atrash, whose brother Muhammad, a brave Arab Israeli soldier, was murdered. His body too was taken to Gaza. And so was the body of Ifat Hyman's daughter in Bar, who was brutally murdered at that same music festival. With us is Sharon Sharabi, whose brother Yossi was murdered, and who prays for his older brother Eli, who is still held hostage in Gaza. And with us too is Izhar Liftage from Kibbutz Nir Oz, a kibbutz that was wiped out by the terrorists. Thankfully, we achieved the release of his mother Yocheved, but his father Oded is still languishing in an underground terrorist hell of Hamas. I again promise you, we will return your loved ones home. We will not spare that effort until this holy mission is accomplished.
Did you know that the most dangerous prayer you can ever pray?
All of us.
I
To a
apologize
dark
for the
age
commercials.
of tyranny and terror. When I spoke here last year, I said we faced the same timeless choice that Moses put before the people of Israel thousands of years ago. As we were about to enter the promised land, Moses told us that our actions will determine whether we bequeath to future generations a blessing or a curse. And that is the choice we face today. The curse of Iran's unremitting aggression, or the blessing of a historic reconciliation between Arab and Jew. In the days that followed that speech, the blessing I spoke of came into sharper focus. A normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel seemed closer than ever. But then came the curse of October 7th. Thousands of Iranian-backed Hamas terrorists from Gaza burst into Israel in pickup trucks, on motorcycles, and they committed unimaginable atrocities. They savagely murdered 1,200 people. They raped and mutilated women. They beheaded men. They burnt babies alive. They burnt entire families alive. Babies, children, parents, grandparents, in scenes reminiscent of the Nazi Holocaust. Hamas kidnapped 251 people from dozens of different countries, dragging them into the dungeons of Gaza. Israel has brought home 154 of these hostages, including 117 who returned alive. I want to assure you, we will not rest until the remaining hostages are brought home too. And some of their family members are here with us today. I ask you to stand up. With us.
I did back this up a little bit to go back to try to catch anything because of the commercial. So I'm going to go into the next part now. And we will pick up from there, still with Netanyahu's speech, because there are some points that I must address. We cannot manipulate the Bible for our own purposes, though. We cannot manipulate what God is doing for our own purposes. And you all need to understand this. You need to read the word for yourself so that you will not be deceived. You need to read. You need to understand that these people operate under their gods, not the one true God of Israel, which is Jesus. And you need to understand what's going on. Now, I want you to hear the things that he's saying, because it's important that you understand what is truly going on. I'll see you in the next part, and we will pick up from where we have left off. We will get back into this. See you in the next part.